Hello and welcome back to the Sky Mobile Transfer Show, our weekly series which we are running throughout the week of August to discuss the latest deals, transfers and generals goings on in this weird and wonderful window. Today on the agenda, six-time Premier League champions Chelsea. Crazy window, solid start or at least a very good result yesterday as we record this. And to dissect their business and their start to the season, I'm delighted to be joined by Rory Jennings. Welcome to the show, Rory. How are you?
I'm honoured to be here. I'm feeling slightly upbeat. You've got me on. You've got me on at a great time. It's not often that I can turn up of late and Chelsea have scored 6 goals. I think you're going back to what, like 2022, where we've scored anything like that. So yeah, good timing for me.
It was a glorious result yesterday for sure. Also joining us, Pippa and Monique. Welcome to the show, Pippa. How are you doing? Another win for Arsenal at the weekend.
I know, it's so far so good. A good start to the season. So yeah, I'm happy. I'm buzzing.
Love it. Well, both me and you will be trying to keep Rory in check. Maybe try and antagonise him throughout the show. We'll see how it goes. Today we're going to be discussing Chelsea's business, ranking their best signings so far, maybe talking about some of the moves they still could do in the final week of the window, because there is still yet more speculation. To give obviously you all haven't been living under a rock, but to give a little background to what's been going on, Chelsea have spent an additional £204 million this summer. They've brought in 10 players. They've also spent £44 million lining up 2 players for next season as well. They bankrolled this by selling academy graduates like Ian Maatsen, Conor Gallagher, Maatsen and Hutchinson, of course. The takeover, or since the takeover has been completed, the spending is now well over £1 billion. They've signed 37 permanent players in that time. So my first question to you, Rory, was can you make sense of the fact that they've signed so many players this summer yet again?
No, of course not. No, I don't think that it's possible to rationalise this accumulation of players. Like we seem to be doing our best to stockpile as many players as possible, and we're doing it and we're financing it by selling off players who understand what it means to play for Chelsea, players that have a rapport with the fan base. So no, I'm not supportive of this accumulation and stockpiling of talent. Generally speaking, when you sign a player, it should be to plug a hole in the team, to help elevate the team. An obvious example of it, a great signing, which sorted out a problem, was, say, when Arsenal went and spent money on Declan Rice. It made sense. Declan Rice would bring something to that Arsenal team that they were lacking. He was bringing pedigree in an area that they desperately needed it. It's a lot of money, but it was a sensible signing. As much as I think Joao Felix is an interesting player, I don't necessarily think he's as good as other people think, but I equally don't subscribe to Roy Keane's theory that he's a fizzy drink or whatever he called him. So I just don't really know what it means. Like, why are we signing Joao Felix? What does it mean for Noni Madueke? What does it mean for Mykhailo Mudryk? What does it mean for Raheem Sterling? So the lack of rhyme or reason, this haphazard approach, scattergun approach to transfers, I don't support it. I don't like it. I don't like what Clearlake are doing. I just desperately hope that it can somehow come together to mean that we get some points on the board.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of neutrals going into this summer maybe thought Chelsea could upgrade as a goalkeeper. Maybe they signed another striker to sort of invigorate or keep Jackson going, because he did have a promising first season. But didn't feel like there was needing 10 new signings, and it just felt like the amount of new signings has again increased the pressure, increased the noise on a new manager at the club. Are you surprised by how many players have been signed all across the board?
It doesn't make sense, because we didn't need to sign that amount of players, and we certainly didn't need to let the players go that we are letting go. Conor Gallagher has made his debut now for Atletico Madrid, and whatever you think of him, I think that firstly, I rate him very highly. I think that he's an excellent player, and let's remember he was a finalist with England at the Euros. Mm-hmm. We effectively replaced him with Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, and I don't mean this with any disrespect, but he's a championship player coming into a team to replace an England international. So I don't like the way that we're conducting our business, but even if you don't rate Conor Gallagher or like him, the way that he was treated is abysmal. He made more starts for Mauricio Pochettino than anyone else, and he was given the captain's armband. So even if you don't agree with my opinion on Conor Gallagher, you must concede that Mauricio Pochettino knows his way around football. And he rated him. So taking Chalobah out of the team, taking Gallagher out of the team, I think the whole process is hateful. And the one thing that really does get to me about Enzo Maresca is, look, he's now the public face of this Chelsea project. He's facilitating this. Football clubs, and maybe I'm being romantic about this, but football clubs should represent more than just being this business machine. Like, I don't understand what's going on. So I'm not supportive of it, Dougie. We're an interesting club. The amount of signings makes no sense. But ultimately, the way that the club are being run leaves me feeling... I don't know if there's ever been a bigger chasm between the club and the fans as there are now.
Yeah, it does feel like there's a bit of a disconnect between particularly the fans you see on social media and the fans that you meet in person as well. I think there's some fierce defenders of Clear Lake Capital on Twitter. But
that's weird, isn't it? It's interesting you mention that, because I've noticed that. So within which I appreciate is a very small circle, but within my friendship circle of Chelsea, like the WhatsApp group I'm in, everybody to a man is of the opinion that Clear Lake are the worst thing to have ever happened to Chelsea Football Club. And yet you're right. If I make a video, I imagine that the comments of this video, if I say, and I do believe, that Todd Bowley and Bedad Egbali are the worst thing to have ever happened to Chelsea Football Club, the online defence of that, it doesn't align with my experience. It's very weird.
Do you know what? I'm not on Twitter, so I don't know what the online defence is like, because when I speak to fans in person, even non-Chelsea fans, they say the same thing as you. It doesn't make no sense. It's the worst period of time that you've seen at Chelsea Football Club. So what is the online defence? What are they saying?
I think there's just some people that just can't take club biases out of their opinion and just think
Tribalism,
every signing will improve, every signing will hit the ground running. You know, Conor Gallagher was never good enough to win at Chelsea. Amari Hutchinson was going to make it, which is probably fair enough. But Ian Maatsen was good enough for Dortmund last year, getting to a Champions League final.
How do you rationalise? Let's. I think it's really interesting, this. How can you possibly rationalise, even if you do support the Maresca project and Clear Lake and what's going on, this ultimate disrespect of Raheem Sterling, who, however good you think he is today, Raheem Sterling will go down as a Premier League great. He was integral to everything that Pep Guardiola built when they got that Centurion season, when they won the domestic trophy. It was Raheem Sterling, as much as it was anyone else. He will also go down as one of England's most successful players. I think it's fair to say that he'll be a Hall of Famer, right?
Yeah, you'd have thought so. I mean, Pippa, I was going to ask you about this later on in the show, but Raheem Sterling's been linked with clubs like Crystal Palace, Aston Villa. There's even been talk, I think it's mainly online, I don't think there's anything too true in these reports that, you know, Arsenal could potentially look at him. Is he a player that you'd maybe want to Arsenal on a you know, low fee or a loan deal? Is that someone that would interest you?
At this moment in time, not 100% no, but a couple of seasons ago, 2 seasons, I think, I thought like Raheem Sterling would be a really good addition to Arsenal squad. If he was to come now, I don't think he'll be offered what he deserves. You know, at Chelsea, he's is the highest earner at Chelsea. You know, he's had a luxurious career, and I feel like if he was to come to Arsenal now, he wouldn't be the mainstay. He wouldn't be a marquee signing. He wouldn't be the guy that plays every single Premier League game. For me, he would be someone that, even though he traditionally plays on the left, he can play on the right as well. He'll be someone for me that either is a backup to Saka, because that is, for me, still needed, or someone that, you know, can challenge Trossard or Martinelli on that left side. I don't think he'll be someone that comes in as a starter and be a mainstay. So I don't think he'll be, you know, the signing that Arsenal need. But he has a great relationship with Mikel Arteta, and he's a quality player, and I feel like he's been hugely disrespected at Chelsea. His number's already been taken off him, and he's not even left the club yet. So that for me is crazy. It's cheeky, just like when Cristiano Ronaldo made his majestic return to Old Trafford, Cavani gave up his number 7 shirt straight away, and I feel like the same things, these things shouldn't be allowed to happen during a season. But yeah, I don't know if he would be the right fit for Arsenal.
I think he'd be amazing for you.
He'll be good, but not as like a starting player.
No, not necessarily. But you know, if Arsenal's ambition is to win the league, which obviously it is, if you try and find why they don't win the league, I believe they will win it, by the way, but if you look at why they don't win it, there is something that you could level at this Arsenal team, Arteta as well, just experience. In terms of how many players in that team have won the league, maybe there's not enough. Yeah. If you bring Raheem Sterling into that setup as a backup player for Martinelli, a backup player for Leandro Trossard, who's mustard, by the way, but so that's a different conversation. I think Raheem Sterling could genuinely be that player to shine. You know, when the games come thick and fast and you've got European away games, Sunday games, like the games are just coming and coming and coming. I feel like Raheem Sterling could be the difference.
Yeah, I think he'll definitely be interested in a move to Arsenal if it was to come about in the final week of the window over a move to particularly a club like Crystal Palace, who have, you know, lost so many key stars in the last couple of weeks as well. I think Arsenal would probably target a younger backup to Saka. We've seen Sterling not necessarily loving his role at Chelsea, where he's not a guaranteed starter as well.
But I do believe Crystal Palace do need another attacking player, because you see just over the weekend that they're so great going forward, but just the finishing is just not there. So if Raheem could add goals to that Crystal Palace side, I think that would be a great sign for Palace.
Yeah.
Also, not being a starter, you know how Raheem Sterling maybe isn't overjoyed at not being a starter for Chelsea. He's correct. He's correct to not be overjoyed at that because he's one of the best players at the club.
He should be starting
I
somewhere.
think at Arsenal, he may fall on his sword a bit and understand that Leandro Trossard is just, he's such a good player. Such a guarantee. And Bukayo Saka is the best in his position, arguably the best in his position in the league. Therefore, I think Raheem Sterling would understand that he would be a little bit more of a support act at Arsenal. Whereas at Chelsea, I think he's right. He's looking around at Chelsea.
I
Goes,
should be
I'm better than
starting."
all. Of course, I should be starting, and he's correct in that assumption.
Okay, let's go through some of be specific, a little bit more specific about some of the incomings that have come in. So Joao Felix has come in, Pedro Neto, Dewsbury-Hall already mentioned, players like Jorgensen, Tosin, and then a lot of youngsters like Kellyman and Salamino, Wiley, Vega, etc. Of that list,
Dougie.
I know.
Do you know what's happened
endless.
here? Something amazing has happened. If you were to look at the team that Clear Lake inherited, and you look at the money that they've spent and the players that you've just read out, we have genuinely managed to spend how many billions of pounds and get worse.
Yeah. It is quite surprising, but I was going to ask you, of those signings that have been mentioned this summer, which one excites you the most, Rory?
I've always rated Pedro Neto. When Arsenal were linked with him, I thought he was such a good player. The injury issue is a problem. But I think the one that has to excite is the unpredictability and the sort of mercurial nature of Joao Felix.
Surely not.
I think it has to be that, because if he can be the player that he is supposed to be, like you've got to remember, playing for Barcelona last year, he's scoring goals in the Champions League. Like, that's better than anything that we've got. If he can find rhythm and.
But where would he fit in?
No,
where
that's a
where would he
great
play?
I don't know.
Because I feel like his best position is probably in the same position as Cole Palmer.
Or as would he be? Is Joao Felix's best position the archetypal number 10? We don't play that. we don't play with an archetypal number 10. So I don't know. Off the front man is what I would say, but we don't play that system. So either we amend our system and Enzo Maresca gets a little bit practical to accommodate a player as potentially good as Joao Felix could be, or we play him out of position, which is back to the drawing board.
Yes.
I really don't know. But also, when you talk about him coming in, it is a player that excites me, just reputationally, if nothing else. Like there was talk of him over the years being a potential Ballon d'Or winner.
Yeah. Well, he was a golden boy quite a few years ago now, but I just think there's been a lack of push on from there. He's had injury issues. I don't think he started over 20 league games in the top 5 league since his first year at Atletico Madrid. He's never scored more than 8 league goals in a top 5 league either. That's a little bit troubling for me, and it just felt like, you've had him on loan a couple of years ago. It didn't necessarily thrill as a loan signing. He had a bit of unfortunate that red card in his opening game as well, but I think it was 4 goals in 20 games. And to do it this late, it just felt like they're facilitating Gallagher's departure as well.
I just feel like a round of applause to his agent.
Yeah.
Because I just feel it is an underwhelming signing.
What, Felix,
100 million, I think Atletico Madrid paid for him. He's been to Barcelona, he's been to Chelsea, he's back at Chelsea again. He's all these major clubs and he hasn't done anything that's billboard sign. For 42 million, I think you signed him for, 45 million, something like that. And we haven't seen enough of him. We haven't seen, Barcelona did okay, but like his stats are not something to be excited about for a marquee signing.
If nothing else, he's better than anything else that we like. Better player than Mikhailo Mudryk. If nothing else. And I'm probably clutching at straws here, but I'm excited at the potential. I'm being as optimistic as I can. It's the potential.
You normally get excited about potential of someone that's like 21 years old.
Yeah.
But is he like 24?
He's never fulfilled never fulfilled the potential that was there then.
Yeah, I think some of the other signings are a little bit confusing as well. Like they've spent £22 million on Philip Jorgensen. He's not the number 1 in the league.
Yeah.
He's apparently been signed for the Conference
Do
League.
you know, we have something like 7 goalkeepers on our books,
Yeah, I
and
was
literally
thinking
none
that.
of them are any good.
I watched the video, where they get every player to pronounce their names correctly. And when it came to Chelsea's turn, I was like, I'm sure I've just seen 5 goalkeepers already. Who's this one?
Yeah.
It's
so
mad.
many goalkeepers.
Yeah.
It's absolutely mad.
None of them are any good. Again, I know this is like not what people want to hear, but I find it so infuriating. This whole like desperation to talk about how a goalkeeper is with his feet. We've got to play Robert Sanchez because Maresca's system relies on a goalkeeper playing as a sweeper, and his ball distribution is better than anyone. The geezer cannot catch. Like, he cannot play in goal.
So he's a footballer
Why
in
are
goal,
we
basically.
prioritising? Why do we do it? Why are we prioritising goalkeepers and their ability with their feet when they're so vulnerable with their hands? And that should be the first priority. So I think that we've got major issues at the back, major issues in attack.
Sounds like a
But
little
we've got
rap
Joao
going on
Felix.
there.
I know, yeah.
They've got good midfield options now, is one thing I will say. Like Lavia coming back, playing that game against Man City, I was really impressed with him, especially for his first start. I thought that was really quite something. But yeah, losing Thiago Silva as well, I think is a huge departure as well. That experience level on that side is just non-existent.
Do you know
really.
what's a great game? You know, if you were to play a hypothetical game of who should be Chelsea captain, which is what went on in my Chelsea WhatsApp
who
group.
should be
Well, because we gave it to Enzo Fernandez,
After
which
the
is
summer he had.
the biggest disgrace,
Yeah.
one of the biggest disgraces
who would you give it
Chelsea,
to, though?
Chelsea has ever had.
Yeah. I think
Maybe
to
Cole
give him-
Palmer, but
Well, this is it. You know, it's quite a funny game, isn't it? Because you know most clubs, you go, who should be the captain? So Liverpool. It is Virgil van Dijk, but you know if it wasn't Van Dijk,
They'll
it
say
could just
Salah.
as easily be Salah, Robertson, Alisson,
Trent,
Trent,
Yeah.
it's easy, captains throughout the team. At Chelsea, say you take it off Enzo Fernandez and then you play this game. Okay, it's not Fernandez. Chelsea have realised that was a ludicrous, hateful decision. They're going to take it back. They're going to give it to okay, who?
I couldn't tell you.
There's literally
But
not
I just
an
feel
option.
like it's too much.
Colwill.
No. Even he had little injury problems as well. I just feel like it's too much pressure for Cole Palmer.
yeah.
Like he's still young. I know he's had a great season.
Doesn't strike me as a captain.
Yeah,
Also, you're just
mentality. He
giving him-
doesn't speak much
You're
in
giving it to him
interviews.
because he's the
Goal scorer.
Yeah, he's the best
Yeah.
player. But there isn't a captain in the team. There's no leadership whatsoever within the entire team.
Judging from past experience, when we had our captaincy issues and the
Yeah,
fans,
you gave it to
the fans
Guendouzi
wanted,
or whatever.
No, fans wanted to give it to Aubameyang, which they chose him because he was our
Your best player.
best player at the time and was scoring goals. But it just wasn't the right thing. You just don't give it to your goal scorer. You give it to someone that's a leader.
You have to be a leader in one metric or the like. You can be a leader because you're a leader in the way that maybe Jordan Henderson was, or you're a leader by example in the way that N'Golo Kante was.
Yeah.
Chelsea don't have one of those.
Yeah,
in the team.
especially with Aubameyang having never set an alarm clock in his
Yeah.
life. I think that was an
rumours.
interesting call.
Those are the rumours. He was always late or something like that.
Pippa, I wanted to ask you about Chelsea's outgoing. So Ian Maatsen's departed, Conor Gallagher's departed, Amari Hutchinson. Which of those do you think Chelsea might end up regretting the most? Because it feels like Ben Chilwell isn't wanted as a left-back either. So
Yeah.
it feels like Mark
He might
Cucurella
go,
is maybe their only option there. Do you think Conor Gallagher's a big departure?
I think that's the most obvious answer, but then you never know with youngsters because they've always got time to progress on in their future, and it's just like we've had over the years with like Serge Gnabry. You just don't know what will happen going forward. But the most obvious answer for now is Conor Gallagher. He was one of the most he contributed the most goals last season, and he knows Chelsea. He's Chelsea through and through. He's been there since 8 or something crazy like that. And he had during his loan spells, it's particularly at Crystal Palace, was where I think he made his name for himself. That's when I had eyes on Gallagher, and I just felt like he's a great Premier League player. And what he's done for England, like you mentioned, it's the wrong time to let him go. He was starting to kick on at Chelsea, got the captain's armband, and then out the door. See you later. It makes no sense to me at all.
Yeah.
And I feel like they'll regret that one.
It's so disrespectful as well. Like there's this thing going on at Chelsea at the moment. This is kind of chiming with just saying how detached we can all feel from the club if you're a fan. There's a group of players like Ben Chilwell won the European Cup with Chelsea. Raheem Sterling will be a Hall of Famer. They're not training with Maresca. They're not allowed to eat with the team. They're eating out of lunch boxes that are bought out. This is genuine. Like, this is so out of order. Like, I don't mean this as a
Sancho
disrespect
treatment.
to someone like Harvey Vale, but Harvey Vale is training with Raheem Sterling. Harvey Vale will probably go on loan and may never play for Chelsea. Hopefully he does. Hopefully he breaks records for Chelsea. But at the moment, it's looking like he's training with Ben Chilwell, who is a Champions League winner, and Raheem Sterling, who is a Hall of Famer in the future. It's so disrespectful to these brilliant players.
Yeah, and you're replacing the players that you bought in that first transfer window already. Like Raheem Sterling bought for what, £47.5 million? He clearly isn't wanted. What is the max they're going to get for Raheem Sterling for a permanent deal in the final week of the window? Maybe £20 million
I
max?
was thinking that,
Also, we've put ourselves in a situation where, you know the intelligence of these American venture capitalists who are always the cleverest men in the room. You've got yourself an asset now that everybody knows you don't want.
Yeah.
Isn't that like that's Del Boy levels of selling things, isn't it? Like, surely make Raheem Sterling, if you want to get rid of him, make him look to the outside world that he is indispensable, and then try and sell him.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that actually in relation to Arsenal as well, Pippa, with some of your young players. Like the fee you got for Emil Smith-Rowe, if Nketiah leaves this week, it looks like you're going to get a massive fee for him as well, maybe Reece Nelson as well. But they haven't been treated like the Chelsea youngsters have. No. And it feels like you've really driven their value up by showing that you want to keep hold of them. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I don't know if that was done on purpose, because for me personally, I feel like they still haven't been given that time to show what they can do. Obviously, we've seen in previous seasons, like the 2020-21 season with Emil Smith-Rowe, we saw well, the Premier League got to see his raw talent, how good he is for Premier League football. But Eddie Nketiah still hasn't had that good run of form, but he's done enough to, gather interest from other clubs, from Premier League, from abroad. I'm hearing there's, teams in Europe that want to sign him as well. But yeah, we've treated them with respect. We've given Eddie Nketiah a crazy wage package, 100k a week. He's got the number 14. Emile Smith-Rowe was given the number 10. He was given the chance to shine. So yeah, they've had a chance to be put on the market and say these are talented youngsters that have a chance to go play elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And you saw Smith-Rowe's goal at the weekend as well, adapting to life at Fulham really nicely there. Before we move on to the situation surrounding potentially some deals that Chelsea might do this week in Sancho and Osimhen, Rory, I want to get your top
Sancho, it's amazing. Dougie, how can we... I can't believe that we're actually going to discuss this now. And we've had a conversation about the ludicrous amount of wingers, inside forwards that Chelsea have on their books.
Add another one.
Fine, let's get straight into it. Before we do the ranking, because look, Sancho showed at Borussia Dortmund that there's still a player in there. I really hope that he comes good because, there's so much talent there. He was one of England's most exciting young players in 2020-2021. But he just doesn't feel like a Chelsea player that they need at all right now.
No, I completely agree. It is the last thing that we need. I've also got reservations about, when he had that argument with Erik ten Hag, and to the top of his social media profile, he pinned his version of events. Off the back of Erik ten Hag being very, very generous to Jadon Sancho, allowing him time off in a season, that really troubles me. But I actually got a question for you here. How good is Jadon Sancho?
I think when he was coming through at Borussia Dortmund, he looked like, people were making comparisons at that time to Mbappe, and he was losing that debate quite heavily. But that was how excited people were about him coming through at Borussia Dortmund. For 2 or 3 years there, Borussia Dortmund fans, I remember watching a video when he left initially to go to Man United. They would talk about him as their best ever signing from that Man City academy. So I think there is so much talent there. At Man United, it never worked out. I think actually some of his best games kind of came when he played more centrally. I think the issue with Sancho is he never has express pace. Like he's not particularly quick. And in a United side that also had Antony on that side as well, who's not quick at all either, it felt like Ten Hag was looking for a more dynamic player, and Garnacho has, for them, luckily arrived. And you can't really complain if you're playing behind Garnacho at the moment, if you're Jadon Sancho. And obviously, Rashford has a much bigger attachment to the club as well. Yeah. But I'm kind of with Rory, Pippa. I don't think Sancho makes a lot of sense for Chelsea right now.
It's just an escape plan for United. They're just looking for anyone that will take him, and Chelsea seem to be the team, dare I say it, that are just ready to just buy people for 7-year plans. So that's...
The only reason that this makes any sense is if you remove any conversation around football. It makes sense because Chelsea could sign him as a business opportunity.
And not use him straight away or something like that.
Assume that he can rediscover some semblance of the player that he once was, and then sell him for a huge profit.
But this is where I find the whole Chelsea strategy so flawed, because that relies on people wanting to buy them at an increased value. And how are they going to increase in value if they don't get any game time?
Yeah, you have to play regularly.
They have to play regularly to increase it, and you have to get a run of form and consistency, etc.
You do have to do that under normal circumstances, but there is also just the exponential rise of eyeballs on the Premier League. More money, everything is going up in value. So even if you get a little bit ripped off for a player or even for a club buying an institution like Chelsea, everything in the Premier League is going up and up and up.
Well, you say that, but spending's down this year because of PSR, and I think the rest of Europe as well is tightening their belts as well. I think Chelsea keep on imagining that there is going to be this endless market for their players, when actually I think people are tightening as well. I feel like you look at the expenditure or lack of spending from clubs like Newcastle, Liverpool. I don't think there's as much free money as there used to be a few years ago. And I totally agree. A few years ago, Chelsea could sell an off-cut really effectively. Whereas now, when you've got 45 players in your squad, whatever it is, no one getting the game time they deserve or need to get for this business to work out, it kind of confuses me.
Do you think the Saudi League and Chelsea's links via Clear Lake to the Saudi League could be at the end of all of like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow?
Potentially. Saudi have had quite a quiet window though. I feel like there was so much talk about Salah going into this window, Pippa. They haven't really made any major moves.
I feel like that was just a huge marketable thing once the World Cup was done, and we heard so many English players, Premier League players going over to Saudi, and then this season it's all gone quiet. So I'm not quite sure what's the next 5-year plan for the Saudi League.
But like Sancho is the most bonkers possible signing that Chelsea could make now. He's a player.
More bonkers than Joao Felix.
But off the back of signing Joao
Felix.
It's all
connected.
Off the back of signing Joao Felix, and like you can go back and back and back of that. Trying to get rid of Raheem Sterling, the trajectory of Jadon Sancho's career, the conduct of Jadon Sancho at Manchester United with regard to the disrespect towards his manager and the manager's office of Manchester United. Just don't sign Jadon Sancho.
He's not consistent enough for what you need right now. You need a consistent player that's going to come in and impact the team straight away for someone for that price as well. Because what are they asking for, 40 million? Another 40 million, guys. You spent it. There's enough.
I know.
We're going to do it, aren't we? Do you know, off the
You
back of this
probably
conversation,
will.
I'm suddenly convinced that Chelsea are going to sign Jadon Sancho.
It's going to happen. Well, there could be another potential deal because Chelsea have supposedly gone back in for Victor Osimhen, which to me makes more sense than any of these moves and is a higher quality player than Nicholas Jackson right now. I think Nicholas Jackson's really promising. But does Victor Osimhen excite you as a Chelsea fan?
Yeah, Victor Osimhen is the kind of signing that we should be making. Victor Osimhen is the exact signing that Chelsea would have made in 2006. You know, a player that has been so effective, won his side the league, everybody's looking at him. That's who Chelsea should be signing. If you analyse our squad, you know, at the very beginning of this conversation, we spoke about look at your squad, find where there is an issue or a vulnerability, and replace it as effectively as you can. We don't have a centre forward. Yeah. Like we've got so many players, and yet so many obvious glaring issues within the squad. Like we haven't got a good goalkeeper. We've got 7 of them. We haven't got a good goalkeeper. If Bencher was not an option anymore, we're going to go into the season with one recognised left back.
Yeah.
One recognised left back. That's another issue. Centre forward though is the jewel in the crown of issues at Chelsea, and it's been so obvious. So yes, going out and signing Victor Osimhen is exactly what we should do. It's exactly what we need. My worry, and the reason why I think it possibly doesn't happen, is basically how do we answer this question? What on earth is in it for Victor Osimhen? If you're him, if you're his mate, say you're his mate, you go, right, you're really good, everybody wants you. Why are you going to Chelsea in the Conference League?
Yeah, I think the thing is, I think a year ago he was like the talk of the town, but then Napoli have since finished 10th. It feels like only PSG and Chelsea in Europe are even considering him. And PSG supposedly looking at Ademola Lookman as well. I think Victor Osimhen's an exceptional player. You know, over the last 4 years, his minutes per goal ratio is actually very similar to Harry Kane. He's played fewer minutes because he's had way more injuries, which is something to be concerned about. But given the fact Kane scored, I think it was 36 league goals last year for Bayern Munich, you know, that's a really, really impressive record. And I think he is really tailor-made for the Premier League. I think for him, actually, as well, I think he grew up a Chelsea fan. I think Didier Drogba was his idol as well. So that's potentially something that Chelsea could pull on his heartstrings a little bit.
Is that enough to get him to sign for Chelsea in the state that they're in now, though?
But I mean, Napoli 10th last year. Chelsea finished above that. Yeah. They've got European football to offer. Admittedly, it's the Conference League. Well, if they get through against Servette, which looks likely. But it's an interesting one. But guys, we need to get back to the title of the show.
Right.
We need to rank these signings. And look, we're not going to go through all 10 of them. Mm-hmm. But I kind of want maybe your 2 best and your 2 worst, each of you, from this summer. Ooh. So the options: Joao Felix, Pedro Neto, Dewsbury-Hall, Jorgensen, Tosin, Kellyman, Anselmino, Vega, Wiley and Gu. Pippa, I haven't given you long to decide that, but is there any one that really jumps out as a potentially good one and a particularly bad one?
The 2 good ones for me are Pedro Neto, without a doubt, and maybe a surprise to... maybe a surprise to Rory here, but mine is Dewsbury-Hall as well.
Dewsbury-Hall, okay.
I think he's a quality player.
I think he looked really bright, actually, in the minutes he's played as well. I only watched him against Servette, and otherwise it's been off the bench, but we'll see.
In terms of the... Look, I think Joao Felix is unpredictable and therefore potentially exciting. If it works and he finds rhythm, I think that could be huge. Mm-hmm. I also like the Neto signing. The ones that really... I've got no interest in Jorgensen whatsoever, like literally none. And I think Caleb Wiley you mentioned. My major issue with that is he hasn't been... Like, he will never play for Chelsea.
Is he the young American boy?
Yeah.
The right
like,
back.
he will never, ever play a first-team game for Chelsea.
How can you be so sure? The defensive line...
Because it's a well-trodden path that we sign players, we then try and flip them. This is nothing against Wiley himself, but I just find this principle awful.
Fair.
Yeah, it is a confusing one, to say the least. I mean, this whole window is pretty confusing, and let's see what the final week brings. Before we move on to our Sky Mobile switch of the week to finish the show, Pippa, I wanted to ask you, Arsenal really benefited from Chelsea's decision to sell Kai Havertz last season. And actually that transfer's worked out really, really well. Do you think that there's a Kai Havertz level mistake amongst Chelsea's outgoings this year? Do you think they'll really regret, a Gallagher or a Maatsen?
It's so funny asking me about Kai Havertz sat here with Rory Jennings, Because literally just over a year ago we spoke about Kai. Do you remember, Rory?
Yes, I do.
And you said, I don't remember what you said actually, but you said basically like, not good enough.
People have we've got to talk about this quickly. People have rewritten history here. He didn't score a goal from open play for 20 games.
But he scored the important goal in the Champions League final.
20 games. You gave him a charitable
He scored
penalty.
the goal.
Give him a charitable penalty. You literally
I think we need a referee.
yeah. But no, I appreciate that he did better than I.
He has really turned it around, hasn't he?
Better than I expected. I thought it would be, an okay signing, but what he's done for Arsenal so far has been way beyond what I could have dreamed of, and hopefully improves more this season. But yeah, to answer your question, for me, I said Conor Gallagher is going to be the Kai Havertz type of mistake.
Yeah. Okay. Finally, Rory, just before we move on as well, your dream lineup. I think there's so many players.
How do you
here.
do that?
Let's not. I mean, the backline I think kind of picks itself on the.
When
basis.
you say dream, am I allowed to put Trevor Chalobah in that backline?
You can definitely do. Yeah, you can do whatever you like.
If we're dreaming, but obviously Trevor Chalobah is training with Raheem Sterling and the other players that have been cast aside. But I would have Chalobah. I think Trevor Chalobah is the best centre half at the club. So I would probably go Trevor Chalobah and Wesley Fofana as the two centre halves. Mm-hmm. Realistically, it will be Colwill, I think. Maybe.
Are you not convinced by Colwill?
I'm not. Actually.
Oh, really?
No, I'm not. I think that it's Colwill or Benoit Badiashile. What it's not is Axel Disasi. It's definitely not Axel Disasi. I think that Colwill hasn't been particularly good. I think people are very kind to him, and they often talk about how well he did for England.
And Brighton.
Yeah, I mean, he played 9 games there,
They were good enough.
Yeah, but Colwill or Badiashile, I'll go Colwill and Fofana, Cucurella on one side, Malo Gusto, who's been brilliant.
Yeah.
The goalkeeper will have to be Sanchez. I think the best midfield is probably Lavia. It's so hard because I don't want Enzo Fernandez anywhere near the team. I just don't think he's good enough.
You could go Lavia, Caicedo and Cole Palmer in front, maybe?
Lavia, Caicedo. Okay, this is good. We can let's work a new shape. Yeah. Okay. Lavia. Yeah, let's get creative. Lavia, Caicedo. Yeah, Enzo Fernandez nowhere near the team. I don't think he should ever play for Chelsea again. Joao Felix. Is there a world where we can accommodate Pedro Neto and Joao Felix into the same side? I don't know how.
Yeah, you could play Joao Felix off the left technically, and then Pedro Neto off the right, but then you're not playing Madueke. You're not playing Mudryk, which maybe
just
isn't
doesn't
a
make
bigger
sense,
shame,
does it? Do you see the issues? It
I
just
do.
doesn't make
Pedro
sense.
Neto starts over Joao Felix.
Even
though, to be fair, Felix's goal on the weekend was...
It was really
set up
nice.
by Neto, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, the whole build-up to that goal was excellent.
And then I think it would have to be Nicholas Jackson leading the line. It's wild, isn't it?
There we have it. £1.3 billion. That's what it gets you. Right, let's wrap up the show with the Sky Mobile Switch of the Week. This is our favourite transfer completed in the last week or so. I've got some options for you guys. Maybe you've brought your own as well, but only in the last few days alone, Dara O'Shea to Ipswich, Jack Clark to Ipswich. Unfortunately, Jordan Ayew to Leicester. We've had Joachim Andersen going to Fulham. Ilkay Gundogan to Man City on a free. Sepp Vandenberg, I don't know how they got £20 million for him, but Liverpool have, to Brentford, and Sander Berger or Berge changes, whoever you listen to Fulham for £20 million. Pippa, any signings in the last week or so that you really like?
I mean, they're not that exciting.
No.
But I do think the biggest one, of course, is Gundogan returning for maybe one last hurrah.
Does that worry you?
Yes, because Gundogan in those last 10 games is a different beast.
We've been here
and
before.
you need that. And I guess maybe I could be wrong, but maybe there's a fear from Pep that Arsenal keep getting closer and closer each season. They're improving. That he thinks, right, I need my golden boy back in the midfield to see us out for the season. But yeah, other than that, Joachim Andersen, I think, is an unsung hero at Crystal Palace. So to get a move back to Fulham, yeah, I think it's great for the fans that still have a number 5 shirt as well from previous seasons that they can fling that back on.
Love it. Yeah, I think it's a really surprising move
I did expect
Crystal
it.
Palace as well, to be honest, to let him leave.
Yeah.
I would have dug my heels in. Rory?
I think it's that one. That's the one I was going to go for. I think Anderson going back to Fulham.
Yeah.
I think that they are building something really impressive, and they could be. They're my surprise package. They've had a really settled pre-season. Marco Silva did very well last year, but remember last year they had their pre-season kind of rocked. Mitrovic went. Do you remember,
Paulinho was in a bunch.
Exactly, yeah. And do you remember at one point, even Marco Silva was potentially going? Do you remember that he was potentially going to Saudi? So he's had a really good pre-season, bringing in Smith Rowe, an excellent addition. And I think Anderson going back there, it's excellent. What it means for Palace, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that is a great signing. Really good signing.
Definitely.
Absolutely. The one I'm going to talk about through with tears in my eyes is Jack Clark's move to Ipswich. I'm really sad about it, to be honest. I thought he was absolutely sensational for Sunderland last year. One of the most naturally talented players I've ever watched in a Sunderland shirt, to be honest. I do think he is really good. people will laugh at that and say, who have you had playing for Sunderland? But he was really, really talented. Yeah, and actually Ipswich have made some huge moves in the last 10 days. You know, Calvin Phillips on loan, Sammy Smodics as well, who scored against City at the weekend, of course. I think they've given themselves a chance. You know, back-to-back promotions, it's going to be really difficult for them to stay in this league, but I think they've had an excellent window. Jack Clarke, from his perspective, I thought it was an interesting choice, given the fact he's been linked with West Ham and Wolves in the past. At Ipswich, they're going to be under pressure a lot. Is he going to get the same leeway with the fans if some of his dribbles don't come off? But it's a really, really exciting signing, and I wish him all the best. But yeah, shame from a Sunderland perspective.
Gritty teeth.
I know. I was
Well
wondering.
delivered, Dougie. Very good. I do wish him all the best.
I wish him all the best. Yeah.
I wonder why you said unfortunately when you read that. I was like, why is that?
Yeah, no, Sunderland fan, unfortunately, at times. But guys, thank you so much for watching the Sky Mobile transfer show for this week. Remember that with all the transfers going on between clubs this summer, it's never been easier to switch your network to Sky Mobile. All you need to do is text PAC, P-A-C, to 65705. That's 65705, and Sky Mobile will do the rest. Huge thank you to Pippa and Monique for coming on the show. Huge thank you to Rory Jennings. And we'll catch you later in the week. Bye-bye.